Hi everyone, Miki Jacobs here. Welcome to Angel Chat. As always, thank you very much for joining in. I'm sorry I was a little bit late with my weekly videos. I've been out of town a lot lecturing lately, so it was tough for me to keep it last week, but I'm back and I'm happy that you are joining in. Thank you. Today we're going to talk about evil, or evil acts as we call them. Of course, I was inspired to do this video by the unfortunate story about the abduction of the three women and the little child there for 10 years. And then I also heard the story about a 12-year-old boy that murdered his little sister. So I was inspired to talk about evil acts, and of course, as always, present the perspective of spirituality, of the soul, of the bigger picture, as I like to call it, which you've heard me say to you numerous times in the past, that of course that's what Angel Chat is all about. So that was one of the concepts that was kind of hard for me to comprehend over the years as I start gathering, channeling and information from the spirit world about the life and afterlife and everything in between. It was hard to me to understand because according to spirituality, there is no evil. There is no such a thing as evil. Of course, obviously, it needs explanation because from planet Earth, that man that kidnapped those three women, of course, was an evil human being as far as our personality is concerned, and rightfully so. But from the perspective of spirituality, the reason there is no evil, because within that human being, Castro, I think was his name, I believe. Within that human being, indeed there is a soul, and our soul is a spark of God. And every one of us human beings have a soul that is a spark of God within our body. So what led human being, lead human being to do such a awful crime is of course not what their nature, the real self is, which is of course the soul. As you've heard in previous topics, that our personality, our name, what we do for the living, our strength, our weaknesses, our shortcomings belong to planet Earth, meaning belong to the personality and not to who we really are, which is an energy being, beautiful, positive, capable only of love, part of God, if you will. So when we look at human beings that do evil acts, no matter how awful they are, within the human being, indeed there is a spark of God, which is why when I channel the spirit world, or when I channel spirits that their personality indeed commit horrible crime, the soul doesn't come across evil. The soul doesn't come across broken up, such the personality can be once the ego lead a human being to do such a awful crime. Willow is here, finally. You see a little bit of the horses in the background. So therefore, that is precisely why there is indeed not evil. The word evil does not belong to the spirituality, but it belongs to us on planet Earth. Being said that does not mean that people that allow their ego, their personality, their negative part of their mind to take over and harm others, that does not mean there's no consequences. We live here on planet Earth, and the personality have to pay the consequences, of course. So that does not mean that because I teach you that because I teach you that there is no such a thing as evil from the perspective of the soul, that those people should not be punished. Of course they should be punished. But it's always important to understand that because you fully and authentically know, believe, have faith that no matter what human being we are dealing with, no matter what stories we hear about any horrific crimes that people do, indeed, that's not who they really are. That's not what they made of. That's what they become here on planet Earth. So again, is there excuse for that? No, of course there's no excuse for that. As we know from that specific story of what I've heard on the television, that he knew within himself that indeed he has weaknesses, sexual weaknesses for young girls. So, of course, he should have been inspired to get help or inspired to do something about it. And he didn't, and he acted on his urges that happen to be very negative and nasty. Instead of getting help and perhaps help himself, he didn't. So for that, he's going to need to be punished. But within that human being soul, body, of course, there is the magnificent aspect of his soul that will, that is immortal and belong to love, the love of the force. Also, you remember me telling you or teaching you in previous topics that there is a lot of reasons as to why things seem horrific to us, whether it is premature death, illness, whether it is stories with such a horrific crimes that one human being inflict on others. Sometimes, most time, is unfortunately the personality, the negative aspect of a human being that take over. But there are other reasons as to why we see one human being harming another, such as karma. I've spoke about it before in a previous topic that called karma. So go back and listen to that topic again, which is very important to our life on earth. Karma means that sometimes what appears to us at the surface, that one human being harm another, is indeed exchange of contract from previous lives between the two souls. So is it less horrific? No, it's not less horrific. We have emotion, we live here, and it's horrific as it's look. But again, my job, or rather my purpose as a spiritual teacher, to teach you that there is always the underneath, the deeper level as to why things are so horrific. There's always the perspective of the soul. And no matter how, what it is, meaning whether it is the personality, the ego took over, whether it is a contract between two souls that need to balance their energy, and they do that by expressing such a horrific crime on one another, there is always growth. There is always growth to all the soul involved. There is growth for those 3 women that was held there for 10 years. For us, it's very sad, rightfully so. But for their soul, there is some sort of growth that the soul was able to contribute to its evolution. Include that little girl that was born in the captivity, and certainly the soul of the criminal itself. So, a lot of times spirituality sounds kind of like a wishy-washy. I know that because I work with people all day long, and sometimes it's just not good enough answer when I teach people that indeed there is the bigger picture as to how things look for us, specifically when things are such tragic, with such an evil acts, as we call them. But that is the spiritual truth, and the spiritual truth is, this is a risky planet, as I like to call it. And our souls, human souls, are fully aware when we incarnated into that harsh planet that the personality, the ego, the negative part of the mind that is a byproduct of us human beings, can and does take over sometimes. And unfortunately, when the ego take over, when it's undisciplined, whether it is the personality bring it from past lives, whether it is the soul need that weaknesses in the personality in order to grow, this is a risk, this is a chance that our soul knows when we enter any given incarnation. So the point is that things like that happen in an earthly incarnation. So, so try to look at it that way. Perhaps it will help you to be a little bit less judgmental, Less judgmental, I know it sounds kind of too soft for that human being that did that horrible crime for 10 years, but less judgmental doesn't mean you don't wish to get what he deserves, just rot in jail, frankly. Less judgmental mean that you understand that there is such a thing that called karma, and if indeed there was no contract between him and the 3 girls, meaning there was not issue about balancing karma between them, which it could be, meaning if there is really only matter of only his ego took over, his negativity took over, he did not take responsibility for his internal chaos and took care of it over the years, so he act on that negativity, then non-judgmental means that you trust that there is such a thing as karma, whether it is he's going to pay this life, obviously he's in jail already, or whether it is someone that didn't got caught about his crime, but there is such a thing as karma, because the soul must pay back to the universe. This is not trusting that there is a God that would punish him. I suppose in the bigger picture, God is the one that created karma, so you can apply that concept, but karma is something that the soul gonna have to balance in order to continue to grow. So there is no such a thing that someone that inflict evil acts on other human being will eventually don't get that back to themselves, because the soul, not the personality, the soul will have to balance what the personality did, what the personality inflict, the pain that the personality inflict on other. The soul need to be balanced in order to continue its growth and its evolution. So that's one thing as to why you don't want to be judged, because we don't quite know as to the perspective of the souls as to the story that we hear about awful crimes such as that abduction of the 10 years. I also mentioned in the beginning of the video about the story about that child, 12 years old, that indeed killed his sister. And I remember watching it on television a few days ago, and they were debating if the boy came with those tendencies to planet Earth. Yes, very much so. Indeed, it is possible that that boy, 12 years old, Saul, came to planet Earth with that plan to exchange some sort of a growth lesson with the sister. That sister, that precious child that died at the 8 years old, I believe his sister was, is not the 8-year-old. This is a soul that was fully aware, or could have been fully aware, as to either the risk that she had a contract with her brother, or some sort of a balance of the karma. So again, what I would like you to do is perhaps be open the possibility to understand that even the people that inflict evil acts, as we call it, indeed that's not who they are, because what they are is the soul. Being said that, as I mentioned numerous times in this video, that does not mean not be angry. That does not mean not be sad for people that die prematurely in such a horrific ways. That does not mean not report something if you realize there's someone that inflicting evil behavior on someone. Of course you're supposed to report it. That does not mean all of those, because we live here and we need to be conscious of what's going on beside us. It's mean that there is a bigger picture. It's mean that indeed everything have an order. Everything is in a divine order, regardless as to what it's looked to us, which is of course so sad. The bottom line is very sad. 3 women that lost 10 years of their life, and it's sad, of course, there's no any other way to call it, but there's always the perspective of spirituality. And although it might be a difficult concept to understand or to even say out loud, I know it was for me when I had to teach people, there's no evil as far as angels are concerned, as far as the spirit world is concerned, as far as our soul is concerned. As far as the source is concerned, there are no evil. It's only lack of light or light in your life. So that human being obviously had lack of light. He was disconnect from his soul. He was all ego, all personality, and unfortunately that took over. So I hope that help you a little bit to look at a different perspective of that aspect of our life on planet Earth, and I hope you'll be able to just open the possibility to perhaps express your feeling about sorrow, hearing stories such as the abduction, but also be able to open your mind to another view. So thank you very much. I will talk to you next week, and be well and take care. Bye.